Hey everyone, I'm Steve from GamersNexus.net, and today we're talking about the Razer Blade Stealth Core. That would be the external GPU enclosure accompanying the Razer Blade Stealth that we looked at previously on the channel. If you want to see more about that, hit the channel linked down below. But before we get to that, all of this content is brought to you by iWayPower's Revolt 2 small form factor gaming PC. The core box is actually pretty interesting compared to the other external GPU enclosures, and that is primarily because it is a non-proprietary unit. So this could actually be used for other devices. You don't have to use the Razer Blade Stealth laptop with it, and that's different from, say, Alienware's unit that came out last year, where you had to use the Alienware special connector. It had a proprietary connector. In this case, it just uses USB Type-C to connect the core to the Blade Stealth, and that's a pretty big deal in that you could use Type-C with other things, not just the laptop that Razer's making. And the other non-proprietary connector is, of course, Thunderbolt version 3, which has a 40 gigabit per second throughput, and that is what enables us to do the external GPU at speeds that are somewhat reasonable. The speed translation there, you're stopping down a PCIe by 16 Gen 3 slot to about PCIe by 4, so you lose a bit of the laning because of the 40 gigabits per second cap on Thunderbolt 3, but that translates to about a 6% FPS hit in gaming, so it's not a huge real-world performance hit. On the rear side of the enclosure, there's a gigabit Ethernet port, which will obviously take up about a gigabit of your bandwidth. There's also 4 USB 3.0 ports, which operate at somewhere around 5 gigabits per second, 4.8, and with 4 of those at about 5, you're running 20 gigabits per second with Ethernet at 1. So saturating all of that fully, which is pretty unlikely, you'd be running your GPU at a fairly hamstrung speed. It would be suboptimal, but because the USB 3.0 ports will almost never be operating at fully saturated speeds, unless you're driving a bunch of external drives off of it, it's really not that much of a concern because the PCIe by 16 at the 40 gigabits per second USB Type-C or Thunderbolt 3 protocol will be plenty for most gaming. The Razer Core is also not, they worked with Microsoft, with Intel, with AMD, with NVIDIA on the driver support, and the main thing here is that you can disconnect the Razer Core sort of almost hot swappable style. You can just disconnect it through the interface as you would do with an external hard drive, and then reconnect it and just kind of go as needed. So the reason that was a challenge is because of Optimus with laptops that do the internal the IGP or the internal GPU on the CPU and the dedicated GPU and run them together. With the Razer Core, the drivers are loaded as soon as the GPU is connected, and once it's disconnected, they're unloaded. So that's all done on the fly, and that was the most difficult part of developing this unit with all of the software support. To learn more about the Razer Blade Stealth and Core, check the previous video we did on the channel where we looked at it at the AMD suite at CES 2016. Thanks for watching, we'll see you all next time.